Most of us spend our days reacting to an endless barrage of notifications, deadlines, and breaking news. This fragmentation of attention creates a persistent state of distraction, leaving a psychological hollow by the time the day ends. This fragmented state contrasts sharply with the deliberate movement of a pilgrim. Walking beside a sacred Indian river at sunrise, the traveler follows a rhythm dictated by intention rather than external noise. Many assume that enlightenment requires the total isolation of an ascetic. We often view divine realization as a mystical state, reserved for those who can abandon the modern world entirely. However, inner peace depends on a structured methodology, rather than a change in geography. Escaping society is less effective than adopting a dedicated internal protocol. The physical journey of this pilgrimage serves as a precise psychological blueprint for daily mental practice. The Radiant Path describes an internal methodology rather than a geographic location. It is a map for the mind. This methodology maps 3 physical elements of the pilgrimage to specific cognitive states. The sunrise corresponds to setting intention, the flowing river represents the state of meditation, and the ancient temple functions as a symbol of devotion. Decoding this mirrored journey provides a way to translate abstract spiritual concepts into an actionable protocol for the modern mind. The physical journey begins at first light, utilizing the quiet hours before the heat and noise of the day take hold. This physical sunrise translates into the first step of the internal practice, the necessity of setting a deliberate daily intention. Setting an intention functions as a way to clear the mind's slate. It allows a person to determine their internal state before external stimuli can trigger an emotional response. Starting the day without this mental reset leaves the mind in a purely reactive state. Without a proactive focus, the day's events dictate our internal experience. A deliberate intention serves as the foundational anchor. It provides the stability needed to navigate the day's inevitable complications without losing focus. As the journey continues, the pilgrim moves parallel to the constant, unstoppable flow of the sacred river. This river represents the flow of consciousness. The water is the awareness itself, while these geometric nodes represent the individual thoughts moving through the stream. The practice requires observing these thoughts as they pass through the focal zone of your awareness. You acknowledge their presence without attempting to stop them or interact with their movement. This is the practice of non-attachment. Much like water reflects light without retaining the image, the mind acknowledges the thought and then allows it to dissolve as it exits the current of the moment. A common error involves trying to force the mind to stay perfectly still. Attempting to dam up the river creates psychological tension that eventually collapses under the pressure of the mind's natural movement. When the mind is allowed to reflect the present moment without interference, it begins to perceive a clarity often described as divine light. Inner peace is a result of managing this continuous flow. It is achieved through the observation of movement rather than the creation of an artificial mental vacuum. The final stage of the physical route brings the pilgrim toward the massive ancient temples at the destination. This stage centers on the term Pada-Pankajam, or focused devotion to the divine lotus feet. In cognitive terms, this concept acts as a singular mental anchor. As this diagram shows, a central focus allows the core of the mind to remain static, even when surrounding circumstances become chaotic. Anchoring the mind to a higher purpose provides stabilizing gravity. It ensures that during moments of intense mental turbulence, the practitioner remains connected to their primary intent. This tether to a higher purpose transforms meditation from a passive observation into a resilient, active state of devotion. The physical journey concludes as the traveler finally reaches the temple walls. The core paradox is that the psychological shift occurred during the act of walking. The transformation was a result of the process, and the destination merely marks the point where that process is recognized. Divine realization exists as a continuous state of spiritual realism. It is maintained through daily practice, functioning as an active process, rather than a final goal to be achieved and discarded. Focusing exclusively on a future state of enlightenment can blind a person to the clarity that the daily process itself generates. This methodology is not dependent on the geography of a sacred rudder. By integrating intention, flow, and focused devotion, you develop a stable mental framework. This structure remains effective in the middle of a chaotic modern environment. The Radiant Path is a disciplined method of stepping into the present moment. It is accessible exactly where you are right now.